Okay. How should we start this one?
Well, it's about college. What's a college
College.
thing?
Ooh,
Yeah. Ooh.
Maybe we should tell a story about how. Should we tell the story of how we met? Did we tell that story
Oh
before?
shit.
I don't think we have. Well, we
Let's
each have
see.
different stories. I
Yeah.
guess. Different perspectives.
But like, I don't know if there's really like a set story of how we met. At
I
least
know the set story of me and Brandon. I don't know how. I don't really know how specifically I met you.
Probably through film history.
Yeah,
I
probably
think I
through
just
history.
like start. I remember in film history, I was like, it was my first college class, that film history, and I
8:30
remember,
on a Monday.
yeah, I remember like the one biggest tip from my high school was like sit in the front row, so you can like that like indicates your teacher that you'll be engaged in the class on the first day. So that's what I did, and you guys were sitting in the front row, and that was it, really, you know. I remember I talked to you guys during O week, but then I don't know. You two probably thought I was weird or something. Then we didn't really talk. I remember talking with Brandon and Joey about horror movies, and I didn't really watch horror movies at the time. So I was just like listening to you guys talk about horror movies. It's like, okay, cool, all right,
Fake it till you make it.
yeah.
Well,
And then
Brandon and
we
I
just-
have a much more unique story of how we met.
Sorry, Ethan. Get out.
Sorry.
No. I want to hear this. I want to hear this.
Well, all right, for the audience, if this is what we're gonna start our episode with, Brandon and I actually met virtually before we met in person.
Mhm.
We were in there's this app called GroupMe, which I haven't used since then.
Freshman
But
year.
yeah, and basically GroupMe was this big like messaging platform where you can have like hundreds of people in one group chat and all that. And there was this big one for our class of Dodge that Brandon and I were both in. And I think Brandon and I, we would make jokes and stuff and, be like messaging and asking people questions or whatever. I still remember random people that I had conversations with at the time who I haven't spoken to since. But Brandon and I noticed we both have pretty similar like a pretty similar vibe, and like we both like the same stuff. We both are kind of nerdy. We had a little like sub conversation with like a couple of other like kind of nerdy people who are really into like dorky
Nerdy
stuff.
buds.
Yeah, Nerdy Buds was the name of that group chat, and it was a fun bunch. But so Brandon was one of my closest friends to begin with, and we started by just like texting and just chatting about like movies or whatever. But Brandon thought I was hitting on him because I text with capital letters and I use emojis.
Brandon, you use emojis.
Yeah, but he's excited. He was really excited. I didn't know the vibe, you know. I mean, like, you look at the messages. You're like, this guy's kind of flirting with me. He's using all cap ha-has and like, like kind like the blushy smiley face emoji, and I'm like, aha, like, okay.
What? And you're like, I got it in.
No, but I remember we kind of we eventually like figured out like where that stood, but like it was like cool at the time. I was just like, oh, I think he's hitting on me. But
Eventually, today he found out that Brandon.
Yeah.
Today you can find out I am not into you.
thank God. That was
Let
a real shame.
The record stand that Chris is not into Brandon. I'm sorry, Brandon.
Honestly, like one of my favorite moments from freshman year is when Chris and I met in person. I was just trying to make an impact, I was like super nervous and excited. And Chris and I at this point had been messaging back and forth for what was it, like 3 months at this point?
Yeah, 3-ish months, something like that.
And I felt like out of everyone at Chapman in those group me's, like I connected with Chris the most. So like even more so than the group I was in freshman year. I remember walking to orientation, and I zeroing in. I walk in the door, which is in Smith, not the renovated version.
Yeah.
I burst in the door, and I see Chris sitting there next, like a seat or two away from Joey, and I was like, "It's the Chris Lee."
And
The
in that
Chris Lee.
moment, I was like, "All right, there's the guy."
That makes so much sense because I must have missed out on this group me thing or like the email that like linked it to whatever, because when I walked in that orientation room, I was like, how does like everybody already know each other? I was like, huh? What's going on? Because everyone already like had like their groups and everything. I was like, okay, I guess I'll just like go sit over here. Yeah, that's I don't know like what happened. I guess I just
Ethan's a real
was it?
fogey when it comes to social media.
I guess so. I had GroupMe. I've never used it. I've never
What?
used
You
it.
even had the app. You even had the app. He's just like,
I downloaded it for a weird reason, which is a long story, and then I never ended up using it. And then, yeah, I guess I just missed out on that. Well, it doesn't matter now, because guys,
Yep.
we're all together. We're here.
you
We're here
ended in the
recording.
right place.
Yeah, I got there eventually. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, today we are talking about, because we are talking about our fond memories of college. Boys, we're graduates. We are living that post grad lifestyle. When this episode comes out, it'll be a week after we all finished our finals and everything. So, yeah, we decided to record this episode to commemorate. How do you commemorate the college experience with the most quintessential college movies. Now, guys, I want to ask, like, what is a college movie besides it just taking place at a college? Like, what does it mean to be a great college movie, you know?
I think for me, like, obviously the college, the university has to be a part of it. But for me, what makes a great college film isn't necessarily specifically like how accurately it depicts the college experience, even though that can definitely be a big bonus, because like one of my movies does that amazingly. But what really stands out to me is like, what is college like? What is that feeling like? That idea of like, moving out of home for the first time and jumping into like a very rigorous like academic institution, and kind of like, what is that like? What is that feeling like? What is it like for you on the inside? Was it like for your friends, the people that you surrounded you, your family or whatever? Like basically the idea for me is, how does college make you and other people feel? And that's how I went about it. What about you, Brandon?
For me, it's like college is a mindset. You go in thinking it's going to be this giant transformative period in your life, and yes, to a certain extent it is. But like more so than high school, it's more about finding yourself rather than like the educational aspect. I'm not saying education isn't important in college films. I'm just saying it's less of a focus. And I think something you can sort of take away from film school, or a school that is more social in its interactions and its assignments, like it's more about the people you meet and the experiences you get while doing that. I'm not, like I said, it's not like the education's not important. It is like an integral aspect. But like I structured my college movies in a way that it was like pre-beginning of college, during college, and then like right after college. So it's got that mindset in it. So it's still a college movie. So yeah.
Right. I think for me, the most common thing in all of my films is like, as opposed to high school, college is a time in your life where you're sort of like, it's your time for searching for like your belonging whether it's in a group or a occupational field, it's all about searching for those opportunities and opening those doors. And I got a lot of different genres in this one. I got a drama, I got a horror movie, and I got a comedy. So lots of different genres like that are based around those themes, because sometimes it can be really funny, sometimes it can be scary, and horror directors can sort of exemplify that, and sometimes it can be really like dramatic and touching, So I think we're gonna have a good time breaking down these films. But before we do that, let's run down to see how the show goes, what's it all about. So once a week we set a topic or theme and go our separate ways to construct our own 3-film stack. Then after a week we come back here on the podcast and share our own stacks one film at a time. Then at the end of the show we will mix and match our 9 films to make the ultimate decision what quintessential 3-film stack we are checking out of this hypothetical video store. Alright, I'm up first with my first college movie. It is a Todd Phillips movie. It's called Joker. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, it's not Joker.
Well, that kind of shocked me for a second.
It is probably... Todd Phillips has, like, he has two good comedies, I'd say, and one of them is Old School.
And one of them's Joker.
One of them, okay, yeah, Joker's a good comedy, but Old School is a pretty good comedy too. I remember this being one of my favorite movies. I haven't seen it probably since high school or middle school, but I just think this was like another like introduction to Will Ferrell's character after SNL, of him going into the movies, and him as Hank the Tank. I thought was absolutely like fucking hilarious in this movie, and just sort of like this plot line of uh these dudes trying to save this house, so they create a fraternity that they can use for the house, and they recruit all these misfits and losers, and like sort of just have like this really fun adventure, like doing all this dumb shit together. Like they have an old man join the frat, Blue, you're my boy, Blue, and they have to haze Blue and stuff like that, and have him like wrestle in a mud pit and stuff like that. And
doesn't he die?
Yeah, Blue dies. Or I forgot if it's either dies or he fakes, like he looks like he's dead. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I just remember like always laughing at this film whenever I watched it. I don't know if it holds up. I'm gonna be honest, but that is just one of the first movies I think when I think of the college experience. Have you guys seen Old School? What do you think about it?
No, I haven't. Am I safe to assume that this is more Hangover Todd Phillips than Joker Todd Phillips at work?
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen this movie, and I like even before Joker, I didn't really know who Todd Phillips was as like a director, because I was just like, oh, the guy who directed the Hangover movies. That's all I knew him as. But I do really enjoy the Hangover movies, and like I don't know, like would you say this kind of exudes that same kind of energy? And I don't know, is it still that kind of like raunchy and fun, stupid level of enjoyment? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say it's somewhere by the Hangover, and also sort of like it has its Adam McKay isms, just because not only that, just because Will Ferrell is there, but just sort of like the plot to it, and just sort of like the tone, but it still has its raunchy moments, like a Hangover.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon, what do you think?
I think it's a good movie. Todd Phillips is one of the only comedy directors that I feel like has like a specific style that you can kind of visually tell who he is. And I feel like Old School is the only one of his comedies that doesn't really feel like a Todd Phillips movie. Like when you said it, I was like, oh, Todd Phillips did this movie? I thought it was like an Adam McKay movie because he works so much with Will Ferrell and stuff like that, or actors like that. It's one of those early 2000s Vince Vaughn, Owen Wilson comedies like Wedding Crashers.
Not Owen Wilson. It's
Luke Wilson. Sorry,
Luke
my bad.
Wilson.
My
Yeah.
bad. But the Wilson brothers worked a lot with Vince Vaughn, and I think it doesn't stand out like a Wedding Crashers to me, like as one of their best collaborations. But it is definitely a good college movie because it pays attention to like an often forgotten about subject, which is like older people in college. And yes, it's like done out of a necessity to save a house, not necessarily to get an education. But I feel like it captures the stupidness of what a fraternity can be like. Even though I was not personally in a fraternity, I have friends in fraternities. I know people in fraternities. So this is something that like I can sort of pick and choose what I think is correct and what's not about college experience. It's a very funny movie though. I give you that.
Yes. And Chris, you'll enjoy it. There's a Big Bang Theory cast member
Is it
in
Sheldon?
the movie. No, it's what's the other not the
Leonard, Howard, Raj. I can do this all day.
I think it's Howard.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
Right,
one
Brandon?
from Walk Hard.
Yeah. The one from who plays the Jewish producer. That's right.
Yeah,
Oh
Howard.
yeah, that's Howard.
Howard. Okay. Yeah, so that's my first movie. Awesome. Brandon, do you want to go into your first college movie?
My first movie is a movie Ethan hates. I'm picking it again. It's Everybody Wants Some.
Wait, did we use this again? When did we use this? Oh yeah, when I didn't see it. I hadn't seen it when you picked it, but now I have seen it. So
yeah. This movie, I get why some people don't like it. I honestly think it's understandably like too much for people who don't like Linklater, because his style is always very like masculine heavy, and it's focused on like being an asshole and like being a partier. And I think it is a great pre-college movie because it takes place right before this guy goes to college and in the like weeks leading up to his first day. And it's very much for me that perfect experience that encapsulates like people who don't necessarily or wouldn't necessarily be friends trying to like formulate a relationship with one another in the first weeks, and you don't know whether or not it works out based by the end of the movie, but you can already understand that these like relationships between these baseball players and people at fraternities and sororities and different clubs, whether or not they're going to last, and kind of what you get out of college in a sense. Yes, like the humor isn't for everyone, and I also think like there are things that are problematic about the film regarding its like treatment of people in general, but I think that is also part of the time, like the 1980s sort of world it's going for with big fraternities and sports schools. But nonetheless, like I absolutely adore the film for what it says about friendship and what it says about life, because I think Linklater is really good at that.
Okay. So, yeah. So, Brandon recommended this movie to me for, what was it? What was it for?
I don't remember.
I think it was underrated movies. Might have been underrated movies. I don't know. I watched it and it's perplexing to say the least. I can't pinpoint what Linklater's trying to say with this film, because he often bounces back between like creating a picture that's supposed to be nostalgic for that time that you were talking about, Brandon.
Yeah.
But also like also putting a commentary on it, you know?
I don't really get that.
Well, because the characters are so toxic. Like, the characters are so stupid and toxic throughout the movie.
That's
like,
a baseball player for you.
Yeah, so I can't tell if this movie is, like, painting a commentary on these characters or, like, being celebratory about this time in your life, you know? And, like, the main character is an absolute nobody, the silent protagonist that we're just led to believe is really interesting through, like, the interactions with his girlfriend, you know? And I couldn't take, like, this movie is just chock full of, like, that pseudo-intellectualism that, like, I feel like Linklater does a lot in his films. Like, that's why I didn't really enjoy Before Sunrise as much as many others. Like, I don't think Ethan Hawke's character is that interesting in that movie. I'm sorry. But, like, and then, you know what this movie should have been about? It should have been all about Wyatt Russell's character. I think
I agree with that.
His scenes are my favorite scenes in the film, just because like you could have taken like it's sort of like a Jeffrey Lebowski character and put him in a college experience, you know, and sort of seeing him like, I don't know. I just thought he was such a fascinating character, and his like pseudo intellectualisms, like I was kind of buying into them, you know, because it's established that that character is kind of an idiot, so like we know that like what he's saying is kind of like supposed to be goofy, you know, but like for the rest of the characters, like I don't know, these are our protagonists, and he, like Linklater was just sending mixed messages to me, you know. So
I have to rebut that, because it doesn't feel like Linklater to do a story that is like an actual narrative. Like, I'm not saying look at School of Rock. That's like a narrative film. Like, that's one of the few movies he's made that's like based in like the typical story structure, right? But when you look at like Boyhood, Before Sunrise, all of the Before films, actually, Dazed and Confused, these are like portraits of a people. They're more like slice of life based movies, right? They don't really contain heavy plots, and they're more about like the little lessons you learn from everyday people in life. Like, yes, I don't think the characters are necessarily like super interesting, and I think that's your point as a protagonist in his movies, is to put your like to put yourself into that character's shoes, like fill in what you know about that character based on like what is revealed in like the visual storytelling, and being able to imprint that into this like this template and then view it from that perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. I have no problem with the way he like how he frames his films and how he like creates a narrative. I think it's really unique. I just think uh he plays this dangerous game between how he depicts the world, you know?
I agree with
And
that.
and like you said, you bring with you what into these characters, you know, and you fill in the blanks, and the blanks that I were filling in weren't that good. Okay. So
No, I get
that's
it.
just so Chris, how you feeling now after that little discussion,
So I
Brandon,
have
I
not
had?
seen this movie. Linklater is actually a director that I haven't seen very many of his works of. I mean, like, I'm trying to think, what have I seen of him?
Have you seen School Rock?
Yes, I have. So I've seen Richard Linklater,
You've
director.
seen
Oh,
Boyhood?
okay. So I've seen Boyhood, School of Rock. I haven't seen any of the before movies. That's it. Yeah. Okay.
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 So like the thing is, like, you guys have both given this very like polarized like results. Like, for example, Brandon gave this a 5 and you gave it a 1.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling I'm either gonna I feel like I'm probably just gonna land dead middle between the two of you, like at a 3.5.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't really know too much about what this movie is about, other than like it's about guys being dudes. But like, and that's a wide open net of like so many things can be done with that. So I'm intrigued to say the least, but no idea what this movie is actually about. So I don't have much of an opinion.
Will say I think you're right about falling in the middle, but I think you might lean towards Ethan just
Okay.
because of like I don't know. I feel like I am not in the minority because a lot of people tend to like this movie based on like reviews and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I feel like it doesn't get the credit it deserves because it's based on the template of Dazed and Confused, and everybody is like, Dazed and Confused is a better movie, and I'm like, I have problems with that movie just as much as the problems like of depiction in this movie. Although like just looking at the time period, I know there are people like this in the real world. Like I know people like this, and unfortunately, like they exist. So like, how do you
Yeah.
deal with that? You know what I mean? It's not glorifying them, I don't think, though.
Mhm.
I think it's
Mm.
glorifying the situation.
Okay. Well, I disagree.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Chris, do you want to go into your first college pick?
Sure. I'm gonna I'll lighten the mood a bit. We're gonna start with a movie
All right.
from 2013, directed by Dan Scanlon. It is a Pixar movie, Monsters University.
Yes.
I was really close to picking this one.
This is a really fun one. I think like anyone who I've spoken about this movie with has always said like this is often like one of those like Pixar films that's often like kind of relegated to the side by a lot of people. And like, you know, I know it's not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's their best work, but I don't think like that means this is bad. I think it's actually a really great movie. And I think one thing I really love about this film is that I think it does a really great job of kind of showing that these kind of like weird like social constructs that the college environment has, especially if you're involved in like things like the fraternity system and all that. Um, you know, like what's the name of the fraternity that they're in? Uzma Kappa versus Rho Omega Rho. Like there's the way that they interact with each other and how people like just the way people behave in this environment is really interesting to me. And I feel like Monsters University does a great job of kind of turning that cacophony of different people and different people different people who like different things, throwing them into one environment and seeing how these kind of social barriers are built up and in some cases destroyed. And yeah, I think this is a really great example of that. And of course, you know, it's also the story of how Mike and Sully became best friends. It's also a really endearing story about like finding out who you are and who you want to be, which I think is an incredibly important part of the college experience. You know, like you kind of, like we said in the beginning, like you kind of go to college if you don't really know who you are or who you want to be, and that's where you get your answer, or at least some kind of guidance towards an answer. And also, I mean, college is just a place to become a more interesting human being, just because you learn about the world and shit like that. So
I wish that was the case.
Chapman University.
Oh.
But yeah, anyway, so I think this is a really fun movie. It's really great, a lot of heart, a lot of like realizing, not letting, like, two things, like Sully, his story is about him learning to like humble himself and learn how to like find companionship in people who genuinely love him and stuff like that. And Mike's story is about him learning like your occupation is not everything, and sometimes your dreams don't work out the way you think they will, but that's okay too. I think that's something that college students, especially art students, like get caught up in a lot, and I think that's a very valuable message for people in college. So yeah, what do you guys think about this?
I I feel like I need to revisit this movie. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think it's good. I think it's a good movie, but like now thinking about like the story of Mike Wazowski throughout this film, I think it's fair to say like out of the two, the first Monsters Inc. is more Sully's movie, whereas because it's like his relationship with Boo. But
Mm.
of course it's both their movies, but it's more so Sully's. I think this one is of course both their movies, but I think it's more so Mike's because I think just that message of like it's okay if your expectations of like what you want your life to be aren't met because you will find like like other stuff that will like have you keep going, and I think it's pretty well told in this story with like Mike Wazowski wanting to be a scarer, but then as he meets Sully and goes through these hijinks, like he finds his place as like and what he's really good at, and I think that's a really good like I think that's a key narrative for telling in a college story when talking about like the experience and like how big of an impact college has on like changing the trajectory of your life, Brandon, what do you think?
Uh, for a long time, the first Monsters Inc. was like my favorite movie ever. When I was growing up, like that was the Pixar movie I often popped in most, and it was like one of the first DVDs my family owned, so of course it wouldn't get worn out. So when they announced they were doing like a prequel or sequel, at the time they didn't know or they didn't tell us. I was super
Mhm.
excited to see it, and I didn't think it would be the way it was. You know what I mean? And when the trailer came out, I was like 14, so it was pre-college. If we were all pre-college at that point, right? And like I don't think it hit a chord with me in that sense, but I still enjoyed the movie. It didn't feel like standard Pixar. Like to me, it would like it wasn't really all that touching. Like the last few scenes are, as Pixar is known for doing, but like throughout, it didn't feel like a Pixar movie, or it felt like it was trying to be. It would have been better if they had focused maybe on like an original story or archetype instead of putting it in the Monsters Inc. world. I think they had the idea for a college movie and then put it into Monsters Inc., but maybe I'm wrong. Um, but regardless, I do enjoy the movie quite a bit. I think there is a genuinely good story here, heartfelt, between Sully humbling himself a little bit and Mike learning to accept where he might be like maybe over stressing about stuff or trying to push too far to be something he's not. And that is something I really relate to. I also haven't seen this movie in a while, but I'd like to check it out post college. I'd like to check out a lot of college movies post college to see like where everything lines up. I know our
Yeah.
experience was kind of shuffled around by COVID, but it definitely going to get the same or different vibes out of it maybe years later because I'll relate to the experience of transitioning more. Not saying my journey's anywhere near complete just because I've graduated, but yeah, I mean, great. It's a very fun movie too. Like
Yeah.
the games that they have, the fraternity bonding between Sully, Mike, and the rest of that. Okay, we're okay. Fraternity. That stuff's all very fun. I just don't really remember too much of the third act other than them at the camp.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh I think I initially didn't see this in theaters because like you, Brandon, like Monsters Inc. was like top tier Pixar for me, and I just thought like I don't want a Monsters Inc. prequel. I want a sequel. I want to see what happens next, and I guess we're getting that with Monsters at Work, which is cool. I don't know what that series is gonna be like, but I had no idea that Mike and Sully were actually gonna be in it until I saw like those stills. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, I gotta pay this for a visit. I wonder when's the first COVID college movie is gonna be like. You
Zoom
said like
University.
when are we gonna get our experience depicted on screen? Come on.
Think about it. We're really unique in that sense, I
Yeah.
think.
All right. Um. All right, let's go on to my second film. It is the horror movie I was talking about. Now I don't know if there's too many horror movies. You guys are probably thinking about the one I'm talking about. It's a film that sort of captures like a horrific twist on sort of the college on coming to college for the first time and the anxieties that you have of trying to fit in with a group and discovering yourself. Yeah, Chris is mouthing it and he's correct.
Yeah.
It is 2016's Raw.
Woo!
Oh yeah.
I saw this film with Chris in the Foligno Theater in our horror class, and
Did we not pick
goddamn,
this?
I think
I think Chris was close.
Yeah.
I remember you shouted it out
Yeah,
once.
I definitely
You were
shouted
like,
it
I was
out
gonna
once,
pick this
yeah.
one. But yeah, this movie is peak of disgusting horror. You know, where you follow this girl going to this school, this veterinarian school, and she's a vegan, and like slowly discovering that she's a cannibal, you know, and she loves the taste of human flesh, of raw human flesh, and it's a brutal movie about like I said, what like sort of putting a horrific twist on like sheesh, that boy tastes good. Just like of visualizing your anxieties of like of sort of being of like that college haze, you know, of being hazed and like meeting new people and like thinking what people will think of you, you know, and it's is disgusting. I don't think any of the people eating stuff is disgusting. Chris, I think Chris and I both gagged at the most disgusting scene was the cow scene.
Cow scene.
It's
God
like Joker. Joker,
It has
remember?
yeah, it has nothing to even do with like the horror
It's
of the
literally
film.
just the most random like sequence. Like the person is just
She's talking to her
they're just
sister.
talking to each other. Like they don't need to be in this.
And she's
environment.
just pulling
Just
shit out of the
shit
cow's
out of
ass.
the cow's
And I'm just like, what? I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah. Oh my god, I remember that.
It is insane. Chris,
Yes.
you were there with me when we saw Raw. I think that wasn't your first time seeing it, though,
No, it
right?
was not. It was
Or
my
was
second
it?
time seeing it. I really dig this movie. I think it's like, I think it might be one of, if not my favorite French movie ever made. I really
Ooh.
love it. I think it's a great like way of like kind of going about that kind of coming of age story, but in this really grotesque way. Like, you know, her kind of coming to form of as her own is really interesting, but it's done in this excruciatingly disgusting way. And I think that it's just really well done. I think I'm trying to think like what I really love about this movie, but you kind of nailed it on the head. Like I'm always taken aback by like how well structured this movie is. I really think like they nail the pacing really well. There's this sequence where I think her friend, or is it her sister or her friend, is like unconscious and she eats her finger or something because she accidentally cut it off.
That's her sister.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then she's eating it. And then she looks over and her sister's awake looking at her. And they're both having like a moment of, hey. And yeah, like, I don't know. I think it's a lot of fun. It's a really interesting movie. Great. And I think it's a really great, like, contemporary French film for people to study. I think, like, a lot of these, like, shall I say, like, foreign language films, like, I feel like it's often can be quite intimidating for people to like jump into a whole other culture and like, you know, just get to know a thing. But like this didn't feel like there was a big like cultural barrier to get through in order to understand the film. And I don't know, I think it's like it's a lot of fun and gross in every way, but in the most perfect way.
I think I wrote a paper on it, but I don't remember.
Wrote so many papers, it's hard to keep track.
It's hard to keep track. I was trying to find it while you guys were talking, but I mean, I agree with what you guys said about the movie. I honestly think the real horror of this film doesn't come from the cannibal aspect. It comes from her constant anxiety regarding whether or not she's going to fit in and like kind of the way people treat her because of the way her sister like sort of got treated when she was a freshman.
Right.
And like when she goes to parties and then there's this like constant pressure to like have sex and like get up really late at night to do things with your friends, and like that's a very relatable thing. It's just packed inside of this very supernatural, well, not supernatural, but you know what I mean. It's a horror film, so not everything about it is very realistic necessarily, but the parts that are realistic are the social situations that she goes through. And in that sense, I think it does capture that transitionary phase where people kind of become people that they didn't expect when they enter college, or like they find a new part of themselves. And whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing, because for both situations, yes, she becomes a cannibal, but like she becomes friends with people, she becomes more outgoing than she was before. It's just like she finds a new part of herself that isn't quite as good, and it's quite toxic if you think about
Oh,
it.
I would say eating people is a little toxic.
Yeah, we're gonna
You
just say
think?
that is not okay.
Army Hammer, I'm looking at you.
You know what's another gross scene is when she's sneaking the hamburger patties and she's putting that in her pockets. That's just
in the
another like
pocket,
gross
yeah.
detail.
It's like
And like the
squishing
sound
shit,
mixing's really good on it with like squishing and shit. You're just like, oh,
I remember
why?
there's
Come
this
on.
one sequence where I think
Yeah.
she's at a party and she's like forced to like make out with this guy, but they're covered in paint, and it's meant to like make this kind of like art piece or something with that. I don't know, they were trying to do something with it, but like
Kind of
yeah.
nice.
I just remember being like, that is the least attractive thing, like covered in paint and just
I think it's kind of nice, but I also think the texture's pretty, like, the texture of everything in this movie feels like gross,
yeah. But
and
yeah,
that
I
is
do definitely
included.
agree with you, Brandon, about like how this movie's real horror actually, because like as the audience, we're kind of positioned in a weird way to root for her, even though we're kind of like bitch, what the fuck are you doing? But like we don't like this,
cannibalism.
but go you, like do you, dude. But yeah, like the real horror of this film
Yeah.
really is like the social anxiety that is depicted, and I think that's something all three of us on some level like feel a little bit with. Like I definitely have a fair share of like kind of just getting a little anxious when I'm in a position where I don't know what the fuck's going on. And you know, like when you go to
Yeah.
college, especially as a freshman, like you're literally like in a environment that you've never been in, surrounded by people who equally don't know what they're doing. And especially when it seems like you're surrounded by people who seem to know what they're doing a lot better than you, it's just really scary. And I totally get what you mean, Brandon. Like that is a very scary situation to be in.
That's right. Okay, Brandon,
Yeah.
want to take us into your number 2?
Yeah, mine's a 1978 film. It's a National Lampoon's Animal House.
I have not seen this movie.
Me
It's
neither.
like that is my biggest white whale. Like, how have I not seen this movie? I haven't seen it. It's a quintessential college movie. Take us through
Yeah.
it, Brandon.
All right, so Chris, have you seen it before I get into it?
No.
No. So, this is.
This is, I know, this is really awkward. This is the
Oh,
sort of
sorry.
taints our reputation. Like, we
yeah,
haven't seen
yeah.
Animal House. What the hell?
It's okay. My dad really liked this movie, so like he's the one that kind of showed me. Like, so I don't blame you. It's not something like I would like seek out if I was not like, comedies from the 70s can be hit or miss sometimes.
Yeah.
70s or before, but this one really hits, and the reason for that is I feel like it captures like not just like the fraternity way of life. Yes, like that's the main aspect of the movie, that's what it's following, but it captures the societal chaos of what a college is. I kind of have this thing where I've picked movies from 3 different decades of college and I didn't realize it before.
That's
right now.
true.
This is from the 60s, but it was made in the 70s. Everybody Wants Some was made in the
2010s.
2010s, but is about the 80s. And my next movie, I'll get into it but later. But Animal House is basically about this fraternity who is getting strikes from the dean and wants to shut their house down. So essentially, the whole movie is about them trying to get that appealed, as well as to continue partying like it's the end of the world, because that's what fraternities do. And of course, every school, every facet of this college revolves around this fraternity, because it is one of those big universities that people go to. This is like an ASU or even a USC type school where it's like, these are party schools. Like, yes, the education's a main factor which drives people to go there, but another big factor is the parties. And Jim Belushi's character in this movie, or John Belushi, sorry, my bad, is absolutely hilarious. There are some lines in here that are like absolutely iconic. There's relationships that happen in this movie that are also iconic. But honestly, this movie really just captures the chaos of what university can be. And yes, it's not always the most realistic to what it can be at like a school like what we went to at Chapman, but it definitely captures that rowdiness that you come to expect from university and college films.
Yeah, I mean, uh, this one will always come up in the topic of discussion. I've seen a few clips here and there, of like sort of the scene of their rallying cry. We analyzed that in my music and film class, and how they like how the composer sort of like manipulates like the super patriotic score to like score a scene that's actually like really lame and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um and like come on, John Belushi, he's iconic. Rest in peace. I hope you're doing lines of cocaine up there in heaven. And up there in the great cocaine lines in the sky. I don't know why I got really sentimental about John Belushi. I don't even consider myself a fan. But
You're just like his brother and his takes on Twitter.
oh yeah, I like Jim Belushi and his anime and weed takes. That's right. But yeah, iconic film, and I'm glad you brought it up because I wouldn't have, because I haven't seen it. Ugh, I'm
I
so stupid.
I am so confident that both of you would like this movie.
Yeah.
Beyond confident.
Maybe that's another movie, just like how I was saving The Godfather 2 to watch after I was a college graduate. Maybe I got to watch Animal House now that I'm a college graduate.
Both
It's a
extremely
perfect time.
important films.
Yeah. Chris, what do you think?
Well, I haven't seen it. But I, but like, Brandon, based on your description of it, like, it does sound like a movie that I think Ethan and I would both really, really enjoy. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm intrigued for sure. I have no idea where to pull reference for this for. I mean, like, w- is it a straight up comedy, or is it like, I mean, what is like,
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's like there's like a little bit like this much drama, but the drama is like relegated to a subplot, right? Between like a pseudo main character, because really, I mean, yes, like I honestly, like when you think of this movie, you think of John Belushi, and it's like literally him who's carrying the movie. But there is like a subplot in there that contains drama. It's just like a mini part of the movie. I think it's mostly about like the hazing you might receive, the chaos of like being in on like being fans of a football team and partying and getting in trouble with the dean and the school. So it's more focused on that than the actual dramatic stuff.
All right. All right. Well, Chris, you want to take us into your
sure.
second pick?
My second pick is my only live action film. My third one is going to be an animated film. And I was torn between two films
Oh.
for this one, but I ended up going for the one that I think is a much better movie than the other. But I want to shout out the one that I didn't choose. It was the one I didn't choose is Jason Moore's 2012 classic Pitch Perfect. Um, but oh yeah, boo hoo, Ethan. I bet you might be
Shit.
disappointed in pick that one.
Damn.
Oh,
So upset.
we could have double stacked. Fuck.
But the movie that I did end up picking is a 2010 modern classic directed by David Fincher. It's The Social Network.
What?
Now, I know that that movie doesn't have
okay.
a huge amount to do with college, but I think what it's about has a lot to do with college. So let me explain. I think this movie is actually a character is a obviously it is a character study, but I think it is also a very tragic film in my eyes because so anyone who doesn't know, Social Network is actually a dramatized biography in a weird way of the youngest entrepreneurial billionaire to ever live, who is still alive, good old Mark Zuckerberg. And yeah, so
What up,
good old
Marky?
Marky. Oh, hi, Mark. But yes, so Social Network is about him and his and how he founded Facebook and how it grew to become this giant, like, media empire that it is today. Um, and what makes this movie a college film to me is the fact that it studies so closely the character of Mark Zuckerberg and how his trajectory as a character doesn't really go through very much throughout this movie. Like from the very beginning of the film, when he's having his conversation with um, what's the name of that actress married to Joaquin Phoenix?
Rooney Mara.
Sorry.
Were you about to say Naomi Watts?
What did you say?
I was gonna say Naomi Rapace, but then I was like, that's not right.
What?
But yes, Rooney Mara, and they have that conversation, and throughout that entire conversation, you immediately know what he wants is like elitism. He wants to be recognized as like a high up elite in like the world of college and beyond. Getting into the Phoenix and all that. But right from there, we also learn what he needs to learn, like what he, as a human being, what he needs is to be able to like not be a dick basically and be a good human and a good person. But by the end, he gets what he wants. He gets all the power, but never becomes anything better as a human being. He's a kind of a tragic character in that weird way. As much as you might love to hate him or hate to love him, and yeah, I think it's a really great film that explores that kind of like ongoing desire for like social hierarchy that I think a lot of people in college have grown an obsession with, especially those in the fraternity system, which I think is kind of toxic, but that's another conversation. Um,
Seeing a lot of toxic today in the chat.
college is
In the chat, you got to stop watching so much Twitch. Come on,
but yes, I think this is a really, really well done movie. It's directed by David Fincher, written by Aaron Sorkin, so it's on point with its writing and its delivery and dialogue and all that good stuff. But yeah, I think it's a really great film that explores this kind of like self-obsession that I think a lot of people in college sometimes have, because I think it's obviously a very competitive environment to be in. One where oftentimes you kind of have to like rise. It feels as though you have to rise above others rather than lift them alongside you, which I think hopefully like Dodge mostly promotes. I would like to think. But yeah, I think Social Network's a great movie. What do you guys think about this?
I think it's
capitalist.
very capitalist. I think it's intentionally capitalist to point out like how power corrupts. I think for a movie that's about computer like software design, or is that software? I think, yeah, computer technology, and B, business, two things that I probably know the least about. Like, this movie is so well directed and written that like I'm fully on board the whole time, and like this 2-hour movie goes by in a flash. I think Fincher does a really good job at like sort of distancing the viewer from these toxic male characters. Something that I don't think that Linklater did, but in this movie, I think he does a very good job at realizing that these people are not people you're supposed to be like really rooting for, But then again, on the other side, I do think that there are moments where Fincher does not depict the women in Mark Zuckerberg's life very well. And when I mean very well, I mean like they're rather one-dimensional and sort of are used to further his own plot, and stuff like that. Even though, yes, I know it's a movie about him, but I don't think they were well written, which
that's right.
That's like my only gripe with the movie, But I think the rest of the movie's pretty fantastic. I think Jesse Eisenberg was like, this might be his career-defining performance. Do you guys think so?
I think this is his best work
he
so
will
far.
be Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like I genuinely can't think of anyone who could have played Mark Zuckerberg that well other than Mark Zuckerberg. I don't even think Mark Zuckerberg can play himself that well.
Yeah. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg can play a human that well.
You've seen him in those Senate hearings?
I don't think he's a human. I'm going full lizard people theory. I don't know that. I don't know about that dude, I don't know. Just kidding. Brandon, big Fincher guy. I know you are. What do you think about Social Network?
Just a quick point on Zuckerberg. I think he's the first existence of a strong AI. It's a computer that could gained consciousness and created Facebook. I'm a big Fincher guy. This was the second film of his I ever saw before Fight Club. The only film I saw before was Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and for personal reasons, I like that movie better. But I think Social Network is an extremely well-made film. I just have not seen it in a while, so like my memories of it are a little bit like thinner. But like for me, I think I saw it in like 2012 or something like that. So like not long after its release, but I don't think it was enough to really like absorb in the impact of what Facebook is. Like I think out of all of his movies, Social Network has the ability to age the best because of what we know about Facebook today and how huge of a role it plays in society, not just in the US, but across the entire world. It was like one of the first social networking sites and one of the ones that was able to basically hold amount of traffic equivalent to the world's population. And in that sense, like it's extremely large. But for me, like I'm not the hugest fan of it. Like I agree with you on the one-dimensional female characters. I think that is something Linklater doesn't do. Like he doesn't create female characters that are one-dimensional usually in his movies.
Oh no, I was
But
talking about the male characters when I brought up Linklater. I don't think he does that with the female characters. I just think
well,
that's
you're
something.
referring to Brenda Song and even a little bit of Rooney Mara in this movie. Like I feel like they're a little bit one note, and so also
Yeah,
um, Rashida Jones as the kind of woman who like turns him down at the end or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
right.
Like I feel like they don't really give a lot of time for those characters, especially like for how quintessential they are to the story. Now Rooney Mara, you could argue because it's that one scene at the beginning of the movie, but like the other two, like come on. But yeah, it's a good story about betrayal and about like kind of the ups and downs of like friendships post college more so because like he's not really friends with the twins that Army Hammer or our guy, I guess.
Our boy.
Yeah, in the film. Yeah, he's not really friends with them. He's kind of like a social outcast that just takes advantage of, you know, a really good idea and then like sort of takes the toxic idea, makes it not toxic anymore, and then somehow makes it more toxic as time goes on. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that that rise fall arc. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's really interesting to see in a character. I'm just not as big of a fan on it, and I need to check it out again.
Cool.
Alrighty. All right, let's get into our final round here. My last college movie. It is a restack from past one that I brought up for fall movies, but like I couldn't not ignore this film. It is Good Will Hunting.
Oh wow.
Come on. Why are you shaking your head?
Because you said you double stacked with me, and I didn't pick.
I thought this was going to be the one you're going to bring up, but then you brought up the worst one.
Honestly, I thought we picked Good Will Hunting, so I didn't pick it. But
I'm
don't
not
gonna pick it now.
Oh, did we pick it? Hold on. Pause the show. Pause the fucking show. Oh, fuck. We did pick it for a final stack. I'm a shithead. Okay.
Pick a new movie.
Pick a new movie.
That's the first time this is
Sorry,
happened,
everyone.
folks.
We're gonna the first time. That final stack list
It's
is getting long.
It
All
is
right.
getting long. I almost did it just now. It's actually.
Ah, shit. Okay, I gotta change it. Well, okay, we're gonna go to me last. Okay. So Brandon,
Yeah.
do your final college movie.
Chris already did his.
I go after you.
Oh yeah. I'm an idiot. All right, so you guys know how I picked like 3 different decades. I picked the 90s college movie that takes place in the 90s, and it's Kicking and Screaming by Noah Baumbach.
Ah.
I don't know if you guys have heard of this movie or anything.
I've seen Kicking and Screaming, the Will Ferrell soccer movie. Is that the one
I
you're
have
talking
that
about?
movie. It's a fun movie. But that's
no, I have that movie. Your DVDs are at my house now. I own that movie.
just starts crying. Yeah. Kicking and Screaming. This movie is available on YouTube, so anybody can check it out for free with ads. It's an hour and 36 minutes, so I implore you to go check it out before I get into it. But this movie is a great college movie. I saw this about a year or two ago, and the reason it impacted me the way it did was because I did not know what to expect going to it at all. This is like the end of college and post-college movie. And much like Social Network, it kind of delves into that life a little bit with your friends and your evolving relationships with people and the growth of the South, as we've been talking about throughout the entire podcast. And the reason why I love this movie is because it's a drama. The reason why it's called Kicking and Screaming is because these characters who have just graduated from college are being dragged kicking and screaming out of their college life and into a life that is foreign, uncertain, unknown, and that is something that I relate to a hell of a lot now that I've graduated from school, where you are kind of stuck in this situation where you're stuck in this transitionary period from being like a kid to being an adult. And I know that happens over the course of college, but it immediately kicks into gear once you have the responsibility of paying bills, going to a job, maintaining friendships and like relationships. And the way it's a very realistic movie where these characters are kind of stuck, you know? They're stuck in that transitionary period, and you as a character relate to them because you feel the exact same thing that they're going through if you've gone to college by this point or if you are post grad. So when I saw it in college, it kind of prepared me for how I feel now a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, but it also is like a very optimistic and hopeful movie about like where you could go and the ultimate possibilities of everything. It's very philosophical, as is a lot of Baumbach's work. If you're looking at like The Squid and the Whale or Marriage Story, films that really delve into how you feel about certain events in your life, divorce mainly in those two movies. But yeah, it's a terrific film. I highly recommend it. It stars the dad from Eighth Grade, if you guys like that guy,
Oh,
Josh Hamilton.
Ah,
And it's honestly, if you are graduating from school, this is a must watch.
yeah. Like you
oh,
describing
okay.
that, Brandon. Like I've heard of this film, but I didn't know what it's about until you just told me. And that does sound like a really intriguing thing because it's like I do totally feel similarly about like that kind of weird transitionary period, when you're between these two giant moments in your life, or at least what feels to be a big giant like rift in the middle of two things. Like that kind of like I don't know if the like tonally what this movie's like. I mean, I would imagine like kind of this melancholic feeling. I don't know if it's that kind of thing. But like I don't know, I think that's a very like apt like thing for Noah Baumbach to tackle, which is like that kind of very human feeling. Like that's something that is hard to put into words about how why we feel this kind of like nostalgic bliss or like kind of like feeling lost, but also like you kind of know what you're doing, but you don't feel like you should know what you're doing. I don't know. But I totally get that. And I think that's a like when I'm always intrigued when a director is able to recognize something like that about like our human phenomenology, like the way that we as humans behave and the way we feel, I think is important. And obviously, I think Baumbach, at least based on what you told me, has done that really well here. So yeah, I'm on board with it.
Yeah. I don't know if not much for me to add just because I haven't seen it, but I have seen some of Baumbach's works. I think what he's able to do with like sort of his divorce dramas of Squid and the Whale and of Marriage Story of like placing you in really intimate and like uncomfortable situations, I think that actually plays really well into like sort of like that college setting or what it seemed like a post grad like immediate post grad setting. So yeah, I gotta check this one out. I'm down. I'm down to check this out. All right, Chris,
Ooh,
let's go into
okay.
your last film because I still haven't decided mine.
Well, Brandon, I'm glad you actually put yours right before mine because yours is a movie about people having left college, and mine is about people heading to college. It is a movie.
Oh,
It is actually my favorite movie of this year so far.
oh,
It
this
is
year.
Michael Rianda's 2021 film,
Oh.
The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
That's a college movie.
it is a
Okay,
college
yeah.
movie. So let me tell
Very
you what.
zoomer.
Oh, absolutely, very zoomer
Very
movie.
zoomer of you.
Yes. So this movie is about a quirky and dysfunctional family, and the main character is this girl named Katie, and she has a little brother and two parents, and it's about the well, we start the story off with her actually um dreaming about going to film school in LA. Now, why do I find this relatable? Why do we find this kind of relatable? I don't know. But yeah, so
Well,
it's about them about like so really what this movie like literally speaking is about them on this kind of crazy road trip but also saving the universe from a AI uprising. But what this movie is really about, take away all of the flashy visuals, all of the crazy music and all of the hilarious jokes. Phil Lord, Chris Miller, you're amazing. um and what at least to me you get is a really really touching story about a child and their parents and the connection between family. And I think that's actually a conversation that we don't have very much about how your dynamic with your family drastically changes when you go into college. You're a lot more of like, you
Mhm.
kind of jump into a level of independence that you've never had previously. And I think this movie does that beautifully. Like, you're able to kind of see, like, for example, the main relationship at hand in this in the film is the relationship between Katie and her dad. And with, I don't want to give away too much, but there's a lot of discovery about like how they're kind of like why they are the way they are, and they kind of like learn to empathize with each other and see like why you feel the way you do about certain things and I feel differently, or like why we actually feel the same way. And like it's about like family coming together and like learning to accept each other as individuals and kind of have respect for each other beyond the confines of like a parent to child relationship. And I think that's really touching, and it's definitely a message that I've kind of like taken to heart a lot, because it's definitely like this movie does remind me a lot of my family too, like in the dynamic and stuff like that. But you know, on top of that, I think it's just a really fun movie. All the jokes hit for me so well. I love the score. I love the animation style. Sony Animation really picked up their shit after they bombed with
Emoji
Emoji
Movie.
Movie, and then they did Spider-Verse, and now this.
Yeah.
And I personally
Yeah.
loved both of them. Um, and yeah, I think it's so creative, great attention to detail, perfect mastery of like kind of like setup and payoff throughout its entire plot. Very charming animation. Definitely a movie that kind of like has locked itself into the digital age, I feel like, because of a lot of the humor. Like, remember the beginning with that monkey screaming? You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's the kind of thing
Yeah.
that I think in maybe like
Yeah.
5-10 years people are going to be very confused by. But I think given the context of when it was made, what it's about, and like, you know, kind of like, yeah, like this is what it's like, at least to me. Like, that is so true. And like, you know, there's these sequences where like it just hits for me, like where the daughter wants to show her dad like a film she made, and he's just not having it. And like like the dad learns the value of art and shit like that. I mean, like, you know, so, and especially as someone who has that kind of relationship with my dad, like, yeah. So Brandon, you gave this a 4.5 just like
Yeah.
me. What do you think?
I've had time to ruminate on this, and I mean, not that my feelings have changed on it in any sense. Like, I think it's still a great movie. I have issues with like the plot being a little predictable and like tipping its hand a little too early on what it is. But like, I kind of don't agree with the critique some people have made that the film is not a relatable film, and that it's trying too hard to be like one that is like in the moment, like a movie for the moment. You know what I mean? Because it does tackle like the very Zoomer form of living and that sort of family structure. But I lived with a family of four. That was like, my sister was older than me. I was the younger brother, and I had to see her go off to college. Yes, we didn't have the same like relationship that Katie and her brother do. But I feel like that transition is so well captured in this film, and how everything sort of changes. And it's not just with Katie, you know, it's not just with her trying to find new friends and, you know, move on from her family. It's about the parents and the son as well. Like, the little brother is having a little hard time adjusting to his sister, and him being like the only person in the house that his parents have to pay
Yeah.
attention to, and how he doesn't think that he can kind of cope without an older sibling to
Mhm.
be there for him. Chris, you might relate to that, being the youngest sibling in your family.
Actually, that's funny. All of us have big sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's true.
And Ethan, are you the youngest too?
Yeah, I am.
So we're all the youngest.
Yeah.
And so that to me is extremely relatable. But then there's also like the parents, right? Like, the parents have to come to terms. And my parents were very supportive of my career, but I can understand like the perspective of a father who's like not really sure like how to handle that relationship. A father who is like, this is their baby and they're moving on. You know what I mean? They're moving on with their life, and they're willing to forget everything, even if they're not ready to let go.
Yeah.
And the parents in this movie do a great job at balancing that. I'm trying to be supportive of my child, while also being like extremely afraid for them and what might happen when they're alone. And I think that is captured wonderfully here, and it's never lost in the science fiction bombast and comedy, which is just an addition. Like the Furby scene at the mall.
Oh my.
Oh,
I I almost lost my mind when the Furbies sequence happened. Like I was like, I saw like the Furbies like in like because when they first see them,
The marketing material.
and then I was
yeah.
like, what the fuck? And then the giant one, like the Godzilla sized one, I was like, what the fuck is happening in this movie? And like I remember I watched it with Cody, and he told me right from the beginning, like this is like he knew that this was gonna hit me home, and it did. But he also told me throughout this entire film, I am going to continuously be looking at the image and thinking, what the hell am I looking at? And why is it so beautiful? Like, I mean, okay. So, like for example, Ethan, I know like you gave this movie three stars out of five. So, like you liked it just fine, I
Yeah.
think. Um, but like,
Yeah.
would you agree that like the visual and the animation style and all that is like really charming and crazy?
I think that's what carried the movie for me, to be honest. Like, I love this sort of Sony Pictures is like they're sort of creating their own visual style.
Mhm.
You know, it's transcending more than just 2D animation, more than just 3D animation. They're sort of combining them both and finding this weird sort of it's like digital but also sort of uh like rough and hand drawn, you know, but it's also like super vibrant and clean, you know. It's hard to define, and I'd love to see them continue post Spider-Verse and post Mitchell's vs. Machines to use this sort of this look to their films, and I think that's what would create like a standout for this animation studio to like compete with like say a DreamWorks or a Disney, you know, or a Pixar or a Warner Brothers animation, you know. I think that's like the real route to make them sort of like the dominating force in animation. For me, I think this was an interesting experience for me because I feel like I hadn't really felt the effects of what pacing of internet content has done to films until this movie.
Yeah. I agree with that too.
This movie feels like it's paced like a YouTube video. You know, I feel like
I do get that.
it's constantly trying to keep your attention, like keep you engaged, keep you like your attention in terms of like its action set pieces, its jokes, it's throwing a joke like a joke a minute, you know. And for me, like I don't necessarily like that when movies do that because odds are like most of them do miss, and I think most of them did miss for me, unfortunately. But and then I think what the thing that vexed me the most was its emotional moments. I felt like it was trying too hard to sort of Pixar eyes their emotional moments, and they paced those scenes out. Whereas like there was a bunch of those moments early on in the film, and then at the very end of the film, you know, and then there's this large gap where I feel like they sort of blew their load in getting me emotional for these characters at the beginning that like I didn't feel it at the end, you know. I was like, okay, I kind of already swelled up at the beginning of the film. Like, this isn't really doing it for me, you know.
That's a great critique, to be honest. I think, looking back, like, I would say most of the internet culture jokes missed with me, probably because I'm getting older. But when it comes to like the like nostalgia and family jokes, like those hit. But then, like, I agree with the emotional beats and stuff.
I don't think I don't think the internet culture jokes sort of like they didn't necessarily hit me either, but I don't think it's because I'm getting older. I think it's because I could clearly tell that these jokes were being made by someone who's older than me, you know? A lot of these jokes often felt like "How do you do, my fellow children?" You know, like the Steve Buscemi meme with him and the skateboard. I just felt like a lot of these jokes are like 5 or 10 years too late, which may have been like timely for this older person when they just discovered it, you know, but like for me, I'm like, all right, you know, that's sort of like another unfortunate thing of the internet is like sort of comedy and jokes, because we're all so connected with one another and we can play off each other like 24 hours a day. We can beat jokes down like a dead horse instantly, you know? Not like some jokes from movies and stuff like that where those go on for ages because people don't really talk about them or use them as much as like memes and stuff like that, where, you know, like how often do you see a meme like have a lifespan for more than like 2 months, you know?
Right. It used to be the meme lifespan was like years, right? And now it's like you will see a meme except for Among Us, lasts for like
And
a week.
I'm getting so sick and tired of Among Us jokes.
Me too.
I'm getting so ugh.
Dude,
But
that's really sus of you.
fuck off. But you know what's funny is now people are taking jokes from early internet and sort of making new jokes. I don't know if you've seen, like, a lot of people are now using troll face to like make these crazy situations. One of my favorite jokes right now is like if you've seen the troll face of him holding the shotgun behind the table and there's the two people bursting in the room, where it's like, stop, da 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 da, and then troll face is like crazy, says, I hate da da da, I hate da da da, and it's like I think that joke's really good. It's like reusing old material, you know, and making new stuff out of it. But yeah, okay. Going back to Mitchell's versus Machines, I just don't think the humor got me that well. I think, but I think this is a very promising movie for them, just to see if like, and I'm happy that this is getting good reception, because now this is telling the studio this movie in Spider-Verse, this is the way to go, you know? And that's exciting. I can't wait to see how they use this technology more, because I found out that they actually reuse stuff from Spider-Verse in this movie. Like, one of the animators tweeted out that, like, you know the scene when the robots are taking over the world and they go to Japan?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That model of Tokyo, they reused Times Square from Spider-Verse. Like, they already had the models.
Wow.
They just put it in. And they just they changed the signs and everything like that, you know? And
that's cool.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I just like, I want to see this style continue and more exciting projects that, like, I think that's like the future. Like, I think that's the 2020s in animation. I think that's the 2020s look, you know?
Yeah. 2010s really didn't have a look, right? If we're thinking at animation, right? Like, if we're looking at like all the studios, none of them really had their, like, Illumination, I guess, had a look, not a good one.
Yeah.
But like now they're all starting to like find their niche.
I think
And you can sort of
2010s
tell.
I think 2010's animation was just striving for photorealism. And I think that peaked with Toy Story 4 and
Yes.
Soul and Coco, you know? And now I think we're going to be going into something that's more
abstract,
bombastic,
yeah.
and exploring what you can do with computer animation and blending that with sort of digital art, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And
One thing
that's exciting.
One thing I want to acknowledge about Mitchell's vs. Machines, I don't think it's talked about very much, but I think should be, is I think it is, I've seen like a billion articles about it. Mitchell's vs. Machines is an incredibly LGBT friendly film. Katie is openly gay throughout this movie.
That's right.
Very much a lot of, like, obviously there's a lot of symbolism. Like, she's wearing like this rainbow pin. There's like little like hints of it. Like, there are hints of it. Like, for example, she's introducing her favorite filmmakers, and one of them is Celine Sciamma, who is the director of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And there's also like little things like Kitty's mom asks her, are you and Jade official, and will you be bringing her home with you for Thanksgiving? Like, just little ways of kind of like openly discussing that, not necessarily making it the forefront of the story, but that being an explicit like conversation, but not necessarily as part of that story, not necessarily, like, it's just part of that world for them. And I think that's great.
It's better than Disney.
I think you're right on the money. It's like, a lot of films that use LGBT characters sort of either depict them as their sexual identity as like their main character trait, or as the point of their trauma, you know, where you don't see that with straight characters. Like, there's just, we've learned, like, we just know how to write straight characters as, these are these characters, there's all these things about them, and they're straight, like just through simple coding and stuff like that. And I think Mitchell's vs. the Machines does that excellently with gay characters, where I feel like this is also the future of like LGBTQ representation, of sort of how to write a character where yes, their sort of sexual identity is important to them, but that it's not the crux of their character. You know? Just like how we don't have straight characters where them liking, well, actually, sometimes we do, them liking girls, and then it becomes like a weird incel movie, you know? Joker is like the crux of their characters, you know? And yeah, that's another factor of this movie that I really love, and just sort of this movie holds a lot of the potentiality
Yeah,
for the future, and
it's
I love
better
it.
than what Disney's doing. I'm telling you. Their
With
first,
Disney's
their first ga-
50's 500th first gay character. Did you see Sasha's tweet, by the way, where they're like, now that Disney has acquired Blue Sky Studios, now Disney truly owns the first gay characters in an animated film, and it's those two rhinos from Ice Age, where it's like, Carl, he's stepping in our salad, and I'm like, that's on the money. That's on the money right there. Okay, wow, we talked about that movie for a while. That was great. All right, now we can go on to my real third pick because I couldn't
No,
pick.
you're disqualified.
I couldn't pick the other film, Good Will Hunting. This is a movie at the time I originally gave a 3.5, but now that I'm living that postgraduate lifestyle, I think it'll resonate with me a lot more. You picked a movie about going in. I'm picking a movie about leaving college. That is, of course, The Graduate. Man, like when I watch this movie, it's like you can't. No one will ever feel that lost after they graduate college. But I'm telling you, in the past week, I have been bombarded with people saying, "Well, what's next for you, Ethan? What are you gonna do next? You know, like what are your plans this summer?" And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, dude,
You know,
it's so happening.
and it's just like, oh, it's the worst. And the way Mike Nichols sort of just like captures this like feeling of being lost as well as just anxiety, you know, through Dustin Hoffman's character. It's so good, you know? Now I'm just like looking back on it, it's so good. And just the insane situation he gets himself in, you know, with Mrs. Robinson.
Ms. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me.
Yeah, and it's just like the way Dustin Hoffman like portrays like sort of just this panic, but like also like this implicit desire to go through with these, you know, at the beginning of the film. It's crazy. And then there's a reason why the ending is so iconic, because the character succeeds in what he wants to do, and he's like, fuck, now what? You know? And that's just fucking life, you know? I think I might just change my score for the film right now while I'm talking about it, because now it's just like it's seriously, it's only been a few days being out of college. This feels so cliche, but it's like it's insane how much more this film speaks to me now, you know? Chris, I know you love this film. What do you think about The Graduate?
I really do love this film, and I totally get what you mean, Ethan, when you were talking about like kind of like that kind of like melancholic, like lost in translation kind of feeling, you know, like kind of just living afloat, I guess is kind of the way to describe it. Like just kind of existing and not really having a defined purpose for let alone for yourself, but that other people are trying to pressure you into kind of like defining yourself right away. Like that's, you know, I mean, everybody I feel like will find a level of relatability to this film, because I think at some point everybody's going to feel a little bit lost in their lives. And you know, we're in the exact same position that he was in when that Dustin Hoffman was in the beginning of this movie. And I definitely feel that. And like you said, the situation that he gets himself into with Mrs. Robinson is absolutely insane. And obviously you have that last sequence where you know, and also like this movie's a really great movie about like social inhibition and just kind of like letting yourself run free, right? And kind of, but also the end of the film, if that last sequence on that bus with that one shot of the two of them redefines this film's meaning to me, because it's almost like it's like a bitter truth in a weird way that, like, you know, being lost is terrifying. And it's the scariest part of that movie to me is that last scene, because they make this crazy drastic jump in their lives and you don't know where it's going to go. Because, like, you know, that movie could have ended very differently. They could have that bus, they had a beautiful shot of them driving off into the sunset and play some rock music or some shit, and it's happy ending. But life's not like that. Like, there are consequences to what you do or what you don't do. And I think this film does that beautifully. I don't think I've seen a film with that, like where one extra shot made that substantial of a difference to me. And I think they did that beautifully. Well, what do you think about this movie, Brandon?
Woo. Woo. Ah, yes, this movie. What is this light?
What do you
on my
think
sc-
this movie?
I'm going to kill. You're going to kill me.
Please.
I really.
What do you think of this movie?
I really like it. I really like it. Oh, Chris looks blazed by a light. Don't blaze me.
I look blazed. Are you kidding me? I'm so sick and tired of these pink neon lights making me look like Thanos every fucking episode.
Why don't you change that?
I mean, I could, but it's just extra effort to go turn on the light.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, the important information for our listeners to this audio podcast.
yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
The Graduate, very good movie. I feel a lot of the same stuff you guys feel about it. It has the very similar ending to Muriel's Wedding, and a film we watched in our Australian cinema class. You remember?
Oh,
When
yeah.
she's leaving Porpoise Spit. But she has a more like
It's
hard and
more,
grass.
It's more optimistic, I feel.
Yeah, I feel like it's more optimistic than that because throughout this film, Hoffman is grasping at strings to find where he truly belongs, right? And yeah, he he never truly like finds that place. Every time he sort of finds a bit of certainty to grab onto, whether that be a job opportunity, whether that be a relationship, whether that be like a friendship, all of these things, right? He will always be like, what's next? Because there is no certainty after that, after you do all those things, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that job or stay in that relationship, or what is the whole point of it other than to have this one thing from happening. One thing happening. Afterwards is just as important, and it's hard to plan that out. Chris has been playing with a flashlight this entire time.
Chris has been giving us a little light show. It's dinner with Brandon's feast of a discussion and a show.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's lovely. I think we've all given it the same rating now, 4 stars. It's a very good movie. I don't relate to it as much as I relate to Kicking and Screaming, but they are very much about the same things, and that one's more of a classic. I'll give them that.
Classic. The Graduate. Classic. Another classic. Alrighty, well, those are all of our films. We got a really good list here. So before we run down our final stack, let's of course run down all of our picks one more time, just to remind everyone. So I'll start off with my picks are Old School, Raw, and The Graduate. Brandon?
Mm-hmm. And I picked Everybody Wants Some, Animal House, and Kicking and Screaming. Dramatic pauses, dude. They'll work wonders for you.
Yeah. Sometimes you do those pauses. I get texts from my mom. She's like, whenever Brandon does a pause, like, I think there's something wrong with the audio. Like, did I accidentally stop the podcast or?
No, you just don't close the gap.
Yeah, I don't close the gap up enough. Chris, what are your films?
My films are Monsters University, The Social Network, and The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Boom. Okay, now Brandon, I like this sort of format for a final stack of doing the coming, the middle, and the leaving. I think we all have films that could fit into those. The coming.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I felt the same. I was thinking the exact same thing. Like that structure, I think is really great
because it captures the transitionary thing in total, and you might come out of it a different person.
Yeah,
I have a proposal.
Go for it.
So to get us with the coming is Mitchells versus Machines. I think that's a very fun movie, a great way to get started, very heartwarming, very crowd pleasing.
Okay.
Next up, I would say Raw. I think that is also a very unique genre bending film. And finally, I think Kicking and Screaming. Do I have any retorts?
I have a retort.
I like the leaving and the coming, but I don't like. I think Raw. I don't know.
I think Mitchells vs. Machines is good. I was gonna say that or Monsters University for the introduction to college, the going to college.
Fair. Okay. Yeah. Freshman year, yeah.
And then for the intermediate, I was thinking Animal House, just because that film is so iconic, and I have no doubt I'll enjoy that one, and That or Social Network. I could go either way, but that one's more, outside of college too.
To me, that's more leaving.
Yeah, more leaving. Or we could do Old School, but I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
And then for the last one, I was thinking The Graduate, just because of just how much we just all gushed about it.
I mean, I didn't gush about it.
Well, I did. And
Yeah,
Chris,
I know.
Chris did, and you liked it. So,
I liked it.
but I do think Mitchell's vs. the Machines is a must on this list, honestly, just because I love the conversation we just had about it.
I think you'd be kicking and screaming if you didn't pick Kicking and Screaming once you see it.
Really, you think that'll be it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you'll hate it just like everybody wants them. It will go either way for you.
Really?
Because-
Well, I like
it
Bomback's
is-
films. He's swinging at, I think, 75% for me. I didn't like Francis Ha, but I did like Squid and the Whale and Marriage Story. So
Okay, the only thing I'm gonna say is that like it is there are like female characters in it. They're
Mhm.
they're just not as like prominent as the male friends within the film. But I think it's relatable because of. I think it has more of a focus than The Graduate does.
Really.
I think The Graduate isn't particularly always focused on how Hoffman's feeling about his college experience, because it like you never really see it end. You know what I mean? There's no graduation. Like it's The Graduate, but you don't see the graduation, or you don't see the graduation party. It's more so like you get his mindset at first and at the end, and the middle is just kind of aimless, which I guess is kind of the point. But I think it's more focused and like in Kicking and Screaming because these characters actively in the year after college are talking about like their struggles and or not talking about it, and you can clearly tell it. But then again, I don't know if you'll like people talking about the philosophical stuff, especially if they're white men, but I don't know.
Why would I not like that? I'm putting out a video essay about me talking about philosophical stuff on Monday. Check it out. Our video our video essays will be out by the time this drops.
I'm just saying because Linklater, because of his movies.
Well, no, I like when people talk about philosophy. I don't care if it's a white dude. I just don't like how Linklater does it. That's all I'm saying. I like Waking Life, though. I think that's a good way of talking about philosophy because he does it in a visual sense instead of a white dude vomiting it onto me.
Okay.
You know what? This is a show about picking recommendations. I'm open to Kicking and Screaming. Chris, are you open to it? I'm fine with having it on the list.
I think the way Brandon described it, it does sound like a movie that's really good for, leaving
It's
college.
a comedy and a drama, so that works for it too.
And it's on Netflix, so maybe I'll watch it this week. And then
I'll come over to your house, my house.
Welcome
It's
to
not-
my house.
it's not your house until you pay rent on the 31st, mister.
You don't get that. You don't fix that goddamn door. I don't pay the rent.
I need rent. You get your rent when you fix this damn door. He's a good boy.
Is Spider-Man 2 a college movie? No. He doesn't go to
He
college.
is in college throughout those movies. We just
Oh yeah, he does, but he's just he's just really bad at college. It's because
he sucks at college.
he's skipping class because he's Spider-Man. All right, so Kicking and Screaming, and then I feel like, you know what, Chris, I could go with that. I could go Mitchell's vs. the Machines, Raw, Kicking and Screaming. I just think it's two films about going to college, but yours is really leading up to it. Like we don't really see her in college until literally the credits scenes.
It's extremely optimistic as well.
Yeah.
So
I think
mine's a
works.
mix.
Yeah.
Mine's a mixture between optimism and pessimism, and yours is kind of pessimistic, Ethan.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's like preparing viewers for the worst, really.
Well, I think that's good. We have a balance
in a
then,
weird way. Yeah, you have your expectation, the result, and what you do with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got that. I like it.
And
very weird
should that be?
exact.
That's going to be our order, right?
Yeah, of course. Why would you do it any? No, do the last one first.
Let's do it in reverse. We're going back. Ayo, it's rewind time. All right.
That's hot.
That's hot.
That is kind of hot.
Also,
He said that in Spies in Disguise.
Spies in Disguise, yeah. Remember when he also said, listen, I don't care that your name is Jeff.
I don't care that your name is Jeff. That had to be a My Name is Jeff joke. Come on.
No, of course it is.
It had to be.
Ethan, literally since I first saw that movie, I was like, I need to see this with Ethan, like right now.
For that
And I'm
one
so
moment.
glad I did.
My name is Jeff. Also, shout out 22 Jump Street. That was almost a close pick.
That was going to be on mine, but we put it for friendship movies.
That's right. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, well that's good. I almost picked Instead of The Graduate, and imagine if I did that twice. All right, 22. Oh, we've already picked that. All right, wait a minute. All right, let's run down our final stack for. Okay, see ya.
And the podcast.
He's like, I already know the final stack. I'm out of here. our recording robot for our prior recording just left. That's fine. Okay, so this is Stack's official college movie experience final stack. Starting with Chris, you want to kick off this list?
Yep. Our very first film is the 2021 animated film, The Mitchells versus the Machines, an incredible visual and auditory experience that enthralls you with a discussion on AI and capitalism, but also a really, really emotional and wild and fun, crazy adventure about loving your family and yourself.
And our second film is about the scariness, the freakiness, the squeamishness, the anxiety of going to college and finding your people, finding your belonging, and making it an identity for yourself that's not from the ones that came before you, that is raw. A movie that takes those ideas and puts it in the lens of the subgenre of like disgusting horror by following this vegan girl who goes to veterinarian school and finds out that she's a cannibal. Ooh. And our last film.
Not a ghost movie. And our
I never
film, our last film is Kicking and Screaming, a 1995 Noah Baumbach film that tackles everything you need to know about post-college life, the aimlessness, the optimism, the relationships you'll have, the friendships you'll lose. It is overall one of the best college films to see as you're exiting and graduating.
And there you have it, everyone.
Woo!
That is our stack of college movies, our episode. I'd like to thank you all for listening, kicking with us for, wow. I think, let's see, when did our first episode came out? The first week of June, I believe. We're almost hitting at a year of stack, which is crazy. I'd like to thank you all for sticking with us. I know viewership has been low right now, but hey, for the real ones, and for those people who listen to our 2000s movies, those 600 people, we miss you. Please come back.
We're sorry we did vegan movies.
I'm sorry.